Mike Watson with us, former House of Delegates member. Virginia, Martha Bonetta with us, and small business owners, Susan Stewart from the Apothic Company, that's a salon in Petersburg. And joining us now is Congressman 9th District, Morgan Griffith. Congressman, great to have you, man.
Great to be with you. Hope you're doing well.
So let me ask you something. PPP, now we find out public companies are tipping into the till. Ruth Chris Public Company made $240 million last year in their financial disclosure. They get $20 million. Harvard University has a $41 billion endowment. That is, I think, like $120 million per student. They get 9. Wall Street manipulate the PPP in order to rake in that kind of money at the expense of other businesses?
No, that was not the intent. But in order to get it out fast, we had to, make it fairly simple. And these folks have good lawyers, and they figured out how to do it. I will say, let's not forget that the Powell Valley National Bank, I was on a call with them earlier this week, they were able to lend out $22 million. And now, you've probably never heard of the Powell Valley National Bank. That's because it serves deep southwest Virginia, Lee County, Scott, some of that area. But it's a very small institution. They also figured it out, and they were able to get a number of small businesses down there the lifeline they needed. So is the plan perfect? Of course not. But is it doing good things in places where you wouldn't expect it to be very effective? Absolutely. I mean, it's a lifeline to a lot of businesses down there in deep southwest in particular, but all over the 9th District. Restaurants have called me up and said, this is what we're doing, and the key is 75% of it still has to be spent on employee salaries. Now, Harvard may be a little bit questionable, but my alma mater, Emory and Henry, in deep trouble because it's a small school without a huge endowment, and they had to let their students go home and refund all that housing money. They're still doing classes, but they had to refund the housing money. So it's not, it's not as easy as it may seem to sort out. But at the same time, there's always going to be somebody that takes advantage of the program, and that's a risk you take when you're trying to do something really quick. And let me say this, and I said it when I was on before. We passed that bill on March 27th. Checks started rolling out mid-April. That's amazing for the federal government in less than 2 weeks to be able to get out a program up and running and out the door.
Well, you're talking to two business owners right now, John Fredericks and Susan Stewart, that both participated in the program and have been funded. A third one, Mike Watson, has not been, although we're waiting on it, did the apps. But in the new phase that's coming out now, are we going to I think the thing that is bothering people, Congressman, is the fact that public companies are getting access to these funds because they have. If you're a publicly traded company, you've got access to all the liquidity you need. In fact, private equity firms just got another $4 trillion pumped into them of taxpayer dollars. They've flooded the zone. I mean, why are public companies allowed to rake in on these on the funds? Why?
Well, there was an exception put in there for franchises, and it was supposed to help the small franchises, and they're probably using that exception. I don't know exactly how they're doing it. I will tell you the new funding that's coming through did not add any exceptions for publicly traded companies. So that glitch will not be fixed in this round.
Congressman, tell us about the new funding that you guys are going to vote on, I guess, when, today or tomorrow?
We're voting on it tomorrow, and it's got Senate passed it yesterday. It'll come up on the floor under the emergency provisions, so there won't be any regular order. We are going to be on the floor. More importantly, long term, Nancy Pelosi's trying to change the rules. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the bill's got some more money for hospitals. Okay, we haven't gotten all the money out yet that we had, but this does target rural hospitals. That's good because the other funds did not. And so that's a positive step. That's about 75. The PPP gets another 310. There's some additional tweaking in there. Small business actually gets about $2 billion. because they're so far behind, and they should have turned over the disaster relief money to the banks just like they did on the PPP, because the entrepreneurs of America figured out how to make that thing work. Small business hadn't figured out the emergency disaster loan program exactly yet, and they got their money before March 27th. So we're giving them some additional funds to try to make it all work. But I think overall it's a decent concept, but at some point we've got to figure out how we're going to pay for all this, and we have to realize that we cannot, as you have been talking about this morning, we cannot keep the economy shut down. We have to use common sense. We have to, have some social distancing. If you're going to a nursing home, obviously those have been the hot spots. People will still need to wear masks and maybe have their temperature taken. I was reading, I forget the name of the company. There's a company that's got a new device that, you walk through, it tells you whether or not you've got an elevated temperature. And that way folks can say, hey, wait a minute, can't come in the building today because your temperature's high. That kind of stuff, as we go forward with high-risk populations in particular, makes sense. But, and I don't know if we talked about this before or not, but hairdressers can't open up their salons. Now, I don't know about big cities like Richmond, but most of the places down here, you're talking about one and two chair shops at most. So you can't have all the guys at my barbershop hanging out and sitting on the benches. All right, they'll wait in the car outside until it's their turn. But right now, the governor said you can take them, you can go to their homes. So there's a hairstylist who goes to house A, 6 or 7 people, nobody's temperature's taken, no idea whether or not they're sick. She packs up her stuff and she goes to house B. You want to talk about silly, she could be in her salon where she's got control and has one person per chair coming in or one person for every other chair.
Yes.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. That makes more sense from a health standpoint to open them up.
Exactly.
And let them go forward.
Thank you.
We've got Susan Stewart with us. She is she owns a hair salon. She's a stylist up at the company in Petersburg. Susan, you want to comment on what Congressman Griffith just said?
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. That's exactly what all the hairstylists in the state of Virginia have been preaching ever since this happened.
Well, I told the governor that story last Thursday. Let's see if it does any good.
It's not going to do any good because he's a captive of his left-wing progressive crackpot base that is now running this state. Caucus of the Court and these other idiots here running around. The majority of them have never owned a small business, never signed the front of a check, have no idea what they're doing, and all they want to do is shut this economy down so they can continue to tank it to beat Trump in 2020. And you know what? Anybody can quarrel with my reasoning now, but they can't quarrel with the data and the science. And here's what the data and the science says in Virginia. 300 people dead out of 8.5 million people. 100 of the dead are with 2 nursing homes, one on the peninsula and one in central Virginia. That leaves about 200 people not dead from the COVID-19 virus. Same time last year, same period of time, common flu, 750 people dead. At the end of April, there was 1,850 Virginians died with the common flu. Right now, we have just over 300 out of 8.5 million people. Coupled with the fact that there's absolutely no evidence that closing any of these businesses has done anything. Now we get studies coming out of USC and we get studies coming out of Stanford saying that the number of people that have the virus has been underestimated by 28 to 85%, which, if you just split the difference, would put this virus death toll right on a par with influenza. And meantime, he wants to shut businesses down for another 16 days, putting families out of business, shattering dreams, destroying lives, destroying companies, destroying incomes based on what evidence? That's my question. Oh, and then here's the good news, all right? Just when you thought it was, safe to go outside, then when we open Virginia, guess what the governor's going to do? He's got an economic central planning committee, and they're going to decide what business is open, who's essential, who can go, how many people can go, how many tables in a restaurant. Not the business owners themselves, not the consumers. Governor Northam and his staff is going to sit down like they did at the old KGB, and they're going to decide what business is open. What planet do these people live on, Congressman?
Well, I don't know about that. Of course, the federal government has a group that's supposed to be looking at how we go forward on this too. But the bottom line is that we need to get folks back to work. We have to be careful. This is a highly contagious, it is more contagious than the flu disease, but we also have to recognize there probably are more people that have been exposed and have the antibodies. We need to get the antibody testing out, but first we have to get through this peak. It looks like, we're close to where we've cut the top of the curve off. That's what we want to do, level it out a little bit. It looks like to me we have done that, but we're waiting for the science. But we're mighty close if we aren't already there. And some numbers indicate we're already there. So, it is time that we start doing that and also start looking at things that are rational. I mean, they cited a fellow here in the Roanoke Valley for having a fitness center open. But the medical data is now showing us that if you work out on a regular basis, you're less likely to have problems with the virus. So, again, you've got to do social distancing. Maybe you can't have everybody close together. But it seems like getting people to work out is actually a benefit, not a harm. But we still have all the fitness centers closed.
Unbelievable. Well, I guess next week when I go to Georgia, I'll be able to get up and work out in the morning. I mean, this is, come on. I mean, people can't take this. And this isn't about going out to dinner and having a good time with your family, Congressman. This is about businesses in Virginia that can't put food on the table. Sure. And the fact that there was a guy in Roanoke arrested Monday that Bill Stanley's representing, our good friend Bill Stanley, because he's trying to make a living for his family and get enough money to train somebody so he can go to the food line and buy the day-old chicken to put food on the table. I mean, and you're arrested and fined for trying to feed your family?
Yeah, it is a tough situation. I should also note that Tennessee opens up on May 1. Governor Lee did not restore their shutdown order. So if you're in Bristol, Virginia, all you have to do is cross that street, State Street in downtown Bristol, and you can have a meal there at the McAdoo's.
Nice.
Hey, maybe we should go there Monday.
Yeah, let's do it.
And then we could go to Bristol and then just have a rolling show and then just go over the
Yes,
over the line.
I'm in.
Hey, let's do that Monday.
I'm in. Let's do it.
You want to do that Monday, Congressman?
Yes.
Go to Bristol?
They don't open till May 1, so.
Oh, May 1. You got to wait till May. When is that, Mike?
That's a couple weeks away. So
9 days away.
That's like Thursday or Friday of next week.
All right, Thursday or Friday. We'll have to do that. Well, I'll be in Georgia, but the next week.
Yes,
because it's just the numbers no longer justify. And it's going to happen on May 8th, right? I mean, he's going to have some press conference, and there's going to be 9 bajillion restrictions. That's if he sticks to May 8th. I mean, they're telling me he is, but there's going to be 9 million restrictions. Congressman, I love what Brian Kemp did in Georgia. He's now my favorite governor. I love what this guy did. Opens up everything except for bars, nightclubs, and concert venues. Opens it all up and says, I'm going to leave it up to the business owners and their patrons and Georgians to figure it out. I mean, okay, so basically I'm going to give everybody their civil liberties back, and I'm going to trust in the residents to decide. Not politicians, not central planners, Georgians will figure it out. Because, I happen to believe in the intelligence of my fellow Georgians. I mean, I'm hoping that other people will follow that lead. That's why we're going to be there all next week.
Well, and I think
I'm fired up. I'm fired up.
After a month of having folks, watch all of this on TV, everybody knows about wearing masks. Everybody knows about social distancing. The message is out there, and he's right. 95% of the people will do exactly what they're supposed to. And for that 5% that won't, other people will shame them if they're, having big gatherings on the beach or something. Somebody's going to go down there and say, what in the world are you people doing? You're going to get our businesses closed. And that should do the trick.
All right, got another question. What did you think of the president's 60-day suspension of all immigration into the United States, Congressman Griffith?
I think that makes sense. There will obviously need to be some exceptions for people who are already here and just need to get their paperwork filed. I'm not talking about illegals. I'm working on a case right now for a Canadian who's working for Company A and wants to move to Company B. But as long as they have some flexibility in there, people coming in for the first time, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. And probably should have done it a little earlier, but he knew he would be criticized as being crazy, but then he's used to that now. They do that all the time.
Are you going to vote in favor of the Phase 4 stimulus package?
I am, but
Griffith?
I'm not going to vote in favor of the rules change that Nancy Pelosi wants, that tilts more power into the hands of the big cities and Nancy Pelosi.
What are those? Can you outline for us the rules changes that she wants?
Well, they haven't given it to us yet, but what they want to do is they want to have, we don't have the exact language, but they want a single member, in essence, of the Democrat Party to be able to show up carrying written proxies from, everybody else that gives them the authority to vote on a bill for them, so they can, and claim that those people are part of the quorum. I don't think it's constitutional either, but we haven't seen the final language yet because she's keeping that from Republicans. And I don't favor proxy voting. I don't favor, voting from afar. I think we have a job to do. There's lots of people doing their jobs at the grocery store, in the hospitals, and we have a job to do that we were elected to, that we asked people to give us. I think for those of us who are healthy, and there are a few who are sick and shouldn't be there, but for the rest of us, we have a duty to show up. And a quorum is just half. It's one more than a half. Certainly we can get a half the Congress people there to do business. And they're trying to say that, oh no, we could do it with just, 2 or 3 people on the floor carrying pieces of paper. Well, Caesar Romney rode through the night while dying of face cancer, suffering from severe asthma and gout, in order to be there to cast his vote on the Declaration of Independence. He could have sent a letter, but our founding fathers didn't think that was appropriate. He had to be there in order to cast a vote. And he made those sacrifices. I think we can make sacrifices to get to D.C. And Nancy Pelosi wants to do away with that, and it's because that gives her more power, because she's going to be on the floor, and who wants to bet she's carrying, most of the Democrat proxies, and then she's in charge of the whole thing. That's not the way a republic is supposed to work based on Democrat principles. And I think it's going to hurt the republic if we go that direction.
Congressman, you're bringing up a point that I had a discussion last night with matter of fact, some folks in your delegates head in your area, but also Weber and former delegate Ramadan, and we were discussing the discussion about electronic voting. And my big argument against that is, politics today is about as bad a place as it's been in my lifetime. The one saving grace we have is the opportunity for legislators to meet, to see each other face to face, and have a chance to actually have a discussion. Whether you do it by proxy or you sit at home and you cast a vote electronically, it takes away that opportunity to come to some civility in our political process. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely right. Look, I don't know how many times I worked when I was in the Virginia House, worked with people on the other side of the aisle. Now, sometimes we'd have a fight, but because we were right there side by side, I can remember one time I got a little carried away, and after we got off the floor, I went over to Ward Armstrong's office and said, "Ward, I apologize. I got a little carried away today." He said, "Yeah, me too." Face-to-face contact. That helped us work out other problems in the future.
Yes.
There was another time the bill came to the floor it had come out of the Senate, I think unanimously. Somebody started talking about it on the other side, a Democrat. I was convinced I was going to vote for the bill. And what happened? He made such good arguments that the bill died 97-3. I was one of the 97. Because we were sitting there face to face, we could see the emotion, we could hear the emotion. That doesn't translate when you don't know people, and all you've done is seen them on a TV screen. It doesn't translate. We knew this guy was sincere, and his arguments made sense, and we decided we were all going to go with him. And that was not based on party politics. It was based on human beings negotiating together.
Any legislator that's not done that, that's not gone into a committee meeting thinking they're going to vote one way and hear passionate testimony and change their mind on something has not been taking that job seriously. You made a very good point.
John Fredericks Radio Network, we're out of time. I want to thank Morgan Griffith for being with us.